No fear here on Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock. Peter Schiff. We certainly want to get an update on all things Peter Schiff. And real quick, we want to tribute to his father, Irwin, which I got to meet back in 1996 when he spoke at the Libertarian National Convention in Washington, D.C., no less. And his whole thing was, the blue gloves for the video because I got, urethane on my hands and get over it. 2x2 hands of blue. What we're going to do is a little bit of an ode to Irwin because he was very effective in describing the government for what it was and the illegality and the immorality of the IRS, and the story of what they did to him was just a lesson for everyone. Now, the fruit doesn't fall too far from the tree. Peter Schiff has been a rabble-rouser of doing it, but in a different way, and managed to stay out of jail. So I'm wondering if you could just, I know it certainly had a big impact on you and your family, Peter. But I'm wondering, what would you, the kind words you might have to say about Irwin, or warnings to other people going down this road? What can we learn from this, your father's life?
Well, my father never basically gave up, no matter how overwhelming and insurmountable the odds. He never stopped fighting, and he always remained optimistic that he would prevail. Even though he acknowledged the corruption in the court system, he was so confident that he was right, that he would be able to ultimately prevail. Even though any, I guess a normal person looking at the evidence would have said, look, it's hopeless. There's just no way. But he kept fighting until the end. As he was dying in his hospital bed, he was, continuing his fight, and wanted me to continue it, after he died. But it's not really a battle that I can fight. I know that there's no way to win in the federal courts. They're not really courts. There's no justice there whatsoever. But I do think that he probably learned more about the federal income tax and understood the federal government's taxing powers probably better than anybody in the country. I think he had a very solid grasp of the Constitution, the Supreme Court cases, and everything that bore on the income tax. And he understood it thoroughly, and that was the problem. He understood it so well that he knew people weren't required to pay. But practically, the government doesn't care about the law. We're no longer a nation of law. We're a nation of men, and that's unfortunate, and that's why the nation is in decline.
Well, this is one thing that your father really emphasized. We covered it. Vince Aprenowitz is a Las Vegas Review-Journal editor that wrote extensively on Irwin's situation, and that's how we learned a lot about it. And we're going, wow, so the lesson that we got out of it. No, there is no justice system. There's not, it's their system. So I'm going to, give him props for making sure we understood and we learned that this is not where you want to do the battle in the courts of their black road paid for the taxpayer of a gun to your head. And I'm going, if you think you're going to get some judge go, as long as you explained it that way, it's public opinion. And the impact that you've had in a lot of stuff that you're doing, do you think you've been more effective, or is it built on your father's stuff? Is there any dovetailing between your father's efforts and yours?
Well, certainly my father, helped me to understand economics. All of my understanding of basic economics, Austrian economics, sound money, all that comes from my dad. And so he set me on the right course, and so that really helped shape everything that I've done. And the fact that I was able to understand so clearly what the problems were in the 1990s with the stock market bubble, in the 2000s with the housing bubble, I was able to understand that the financial crisis was coming, and I'm able to see the bigger picture now, and I see these bigger crises coming in the near future because of my understanding of economics that, but for my father's teaching, I might not have.
A lot of the young Austrian economists in their 20s that read downloads on their Kindle of Mises stuff constantly, they were so influenced by some of his, simple writings and such that helped them, like you say, understand what's really going on, that when you came to Scottsdale a few years ago, they had done some dime cards featuring some of your father's illustrations to his writings and so on. Do you remember that?
Nah, not really.
Yeah, it was a little laminated dime cards that they gave when you spoke in Scottsdale or something. But I remember they were very enthusiastic about making sure you got those. I know it was a while ago, but your father had a big impact on a whole generation of libertarian, understanding the immorality and just the injustice of the whole thing. So I'm going, all right, well, your efforts have been different, a little bit more, understanding the how this applied to the financial area, the economy here, and people by following what you learned from your father, what you've been able to explain to people. Europac is now making people some money with some understanding. You come out being right. And I just saw, and you probably, you do so many of these. It was an 1.5-hour presentation, November of 2014, and it sounded like it was last week. And I'm going, wow, we had it up on Freedom's Phoenix. I go, publisher recommend, just listen to it. Donna has taken that speech and put it on her real estate page. She's going, look, you want to understand what's going on. Here's an 1.5 hours of, Peter Schiff explaining it to you. And I'm going, damn, man, here it comes again. What do we got to look forward to is going to happen in the market?
Well, I think the market is going to continue to be propped up by the Fed. Every time they think the Fed is going to raise rates, the market is under pressure. And then when there's a hint that they might not raise rates, the market rises. Of course, the reality is the Fed is not going to raise rates. But pretending that it can is part of its plan. The Fed wants to pretend that what it did actually worked, that we have a legitimate recovery, and therefore they have to pretend that they can raise rates. So they talk about their intention to raise rates, but the one thing they can't do is actually raise them, because then they'll prove that the recovery is not real. It's actually a bubble, and the only thing sustaining it is that rates are at zero. But the truth is that 0% interest rates are not low enough. The Fed needs to do more quantitative easing to keep the air from coming out of this bubble, which is why I think they're going to announce QE4.
Wow.
And that's going to come probably sometime next year. But, it doesn't actually work. Everything the Fed is doing is hurting the economy. That's why it has to keep doing it. Because, when the Fed interferes, it just makes the problems they're trying to solve worse. And so now it has to interfere again, only this time the interference is bigger because the problem is bigger, and it's a self-perpetuating spiral that can only end in a complete, economic meltdown.
Well, do they understand that is the ultimate result, or they just, do a redo, take zeros off the paper? What's their end game?
Well, I don't know what they understand. They could just be completely clueless. Or maybe they are a little bit smarter than that, but they're just lying. But I had an encounter with Ben Bernanke, and just in talking to him, to me he seemed totally clueless. And I'm sure Yellen is even more so. So they probably have no idea. They know that things are bad, and they're hoping that if they just print enough money, that things will turn around. But that's never going to happen. It's just going to get worse.
Okay, one thing I got from this, when we come back, we get one more segment, then Peter's got to go. But yeah, when we come back, it was the interest rates. If they're at zero now, and we're paying on our debt, the $250 million, $1 billion, all of a sudden it goes to, we got $20 trillion debt, and it goes up to even 5%. I remember here in the U.S. in the early 90s, it was 8%. Heck, the Fed Reserve, it was over 20% when Volcker did. All of a sudden, what happens from nothing to 5%? Heck, that's $1 trillion a year just in interest. And they're not even thinking about it. Peter is. He's going to explain what I just said, when we come back here on Declare Your Independence in just a little bit. Yeah, Peter, that it was that speech that when you made that point, interest rates even go up a little bit, we're freaking screwed. And this is why everybody was going batshit crazy over Greece and Italy going up just 6% or something. I'm going, wow, I remember in the early 90s, they were freaking out when it was 8 something.
Mm-hmm.
So, is that something, our interest on the debt and how that's going to, one reason why they can't, can you explain that to us, please?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's so many reasons they can't raise rates. They should raise rates and let all this stuff happen, all this bad stuff happen, because that bad stuff is part of a healing process.
Yeah, no, I understand.
They don't want to.
I understand. The debt, I don't see how this is ever going to, all right, this is my main concern. Here in Arizona, we have the Goldwater Institute, which is kind of like a Cato thing. We have Americans for Prosperity. I know all these guys, a monthly discussion group, and they're there, want to explain it to me. And the anarchists in the group are like, yeah, save it unless we'd rather talk about fishing or something. But so we have these meetings and such, and one of the gentlemen, his name is Nick Dranius, that left the Goldwater Institute to run, with Koch brothers doing a thing about we need to have a balanced budget amendment to open up in the Constitution Convention on the one issue of blah, 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 blah. And we have him on, and I'm going, okay, I just need to ask one question. Will my granddaughter still owe all of this debt? I mean, are you just doing a refi on America? Are you getting this generation to sign up for you owe us? I go, then it's a dead letter as far as I'm concerned. I go, it doesn't matter what the hell you do. It's unpayable already anyway. I don't give a crap what you restructure. I don't trust them anyway. So is there any repudiation option? $1 trillion platinum coins.
The repudiation is going to be the repudiation is massive inflation. They just print a bunch of money.
And so you think that's how they're going to
wipe out the value of the dollar.
All right. I mean, and that's the pain that you say that you're thinking that we're eventually going to have to go through. It's just going to be,
Well, that's not. I mean, we would go if we did the right thing. We wouldn't have a collapse of the dollar. We would have default. We would have bankruptcies. We'd have restructuring. People would lose money. No, what we're going to end up going through is something
Would the government default?
Yeah, well, the government should default. They're broke.
Okay, well, I'm just saying
that instead of defaulting, they're going to print money, and so everybody is going to get wiped out.
Yeah, I'm wondering how that eliminates does that eliminate the debt in any way?
Because you're going to be if you have $10 trillion bills in your wallet, what's the debt worth?
All right.
If a cup of coffee is $1 trillion, so what if we have a $20 trillion debt? That's 20 cups of coffee.
This is going to end sooner or later. It's going to end, and when they, these guys, they want to do, we're gonna get a balanced budget amendment. We're going to do a refi on America. We're going to have a new constitutional convention and say they can't. And I'm going. Is this eliminating my grandkids' obligation to pay this unpayable, and they're just tax slaves forever? That's dead letter. I don't care. I just nope. Well, Peter Schiff thinks it's going to get done. We're going to sooner or later. It's all going to come down. I'm wondering how and how would that manifest itself, and what would we look at, and what would be the government's role in, it, and how would we Peter? In this segment, please help us out. What you think is going to happen or has to happen?
Well, the debt is unpayable. You're right about that. And there's only two ways to deal with debt that you can't pay. One is the honest way, and that you default. And that is what should happen. The U.S. government should admit that it can't keep all the promises that it made. They keep saying we have to raise the debt limit because, we pay our bills. No, we're raising the debt limit because we never pay our bills. What we need to do is admit that we can't pay our bills and restructure. And that means that people take less than 100 cents on the dollar. That means people that own U.S. Treasury bonds, they don't get back 100 cents on the dollar. People who were promised Social Security benefits, they're not going to get what they were promised. They've got to get less. People who are going to get government pensions have to get less than they were promised. That's just the reality. The government has made too many promises to too many voters to get their votes. But that's not what's going to happen politically. What's going to happen is something much worse, and that is inflation. The government is going to print money. The Federal Reserve is going to print money so that the federal government does not have to default. Everybody's going to get their payments. Everybody's going to get their Treasury bond payments. Everyone's going to get their Social Security checks. Everybody's going to get their government pensions. The problem is the money's not going to be worth very much, and it may not be worth anything. We may have hyperinflation. And unfortunately, that is where this is going to end. It's going to end in a currency crisis. Maybe it'll be like the Weimar Republic. Maybe it will be like the Zimbabwe. Or maybe before it gets that bad, we'll finally do the right thing. But between now and then is a significant loss in the value of the dollar and a dramatic decline in the standard of living of every American who earns dollars, who saves dollars, who invests dollars, which is why I am trying to do the best that I can to help Americans protect themselves against that tax, right? My father was trying to get people about not paying the income tax. Well, this inflation tax is going to be worse because it's going to hit your principal, not just what you earn, but everything that you have. And if you don't want to lose what you have to take action now. And that's what I'm helping my clients do at my brokerage firm, at Europe Pacific Capital, at Schiff Gold, helping people preserve their wealth by getting out of U.S. dollars now and getting into assets that will retain their value, whether it's foreign stocks, stocks, foreign bonds, precious metals. There are all sorts of things that people can do now to preserve their wealth, but you have to do it quickly because time is running out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm feeling the breathing down the neck thing, and I'm wondering, the time frame. It's only about. I always say this. I've been saying this for 20 years. They need to extend this one more election cycle. And I'm wondering, are they going to make it to 2016, a year from now? Are they going to, elections coming up, or are we going to have what we had in 2008? And it's like, oh, McCain and Obama's got to suspend their campaign to go to Washington to extend, oh, my goodness, and save us one more time and kick the can. How many times can they kick the can down the road?
Well, that can's getting awfully big, and we're running out of road. That's the problem. But look, the problem is there always is another election down the line, and so they're always trying to get past the next election. And yes, the Federal Reserve is going to try to make sure that Barack Obama doesn't go out the way Bush did, and because I don't think that they want to hand the White House back to the Republicans. Janet Yellen wants to keep it in the Democrats. I think Janet Yellen really wants Hillary Clinton to be the next president, and she doesn't want to have this whole thing fall apart on Obama's watch. So she's going to do whatever she can to delay the day of reckoning beyond the 2016 election, and that means a lot of money is going to be printed between now and then. People are saying, oh, the Fed's going to raise rates. No, they're not. They're going to lower rates. Even though they're at zero, they're going to lower them with another round of QE.
Explain that. QE, quantitative easing, it's I looked it up, and it's printing money. But how do they get it?
That's basically what it is. It's monetizing debt, printing money and buying government bonds.
And then there's, whatever interest area. I mean, it's just, a private entity that we now owe this money to that they borrowed into existence and we owe it. Just craziness. And I'm going, it's not that which cannot be sustained, won't. So we got that to look forward to. So you're at Europac.net. We'll make sure we get this right.
Europac.com is
Europac.com. EUROPAC.com. We got Schiff, SCHIFF Gold.com. Tell us about Schiff Gold.
Well, that's my precious metals company. I advocate that people physically own gold and silver, take possession of it, keep it safe, put it in a safe, in your basement or something. But Schiff Gold is my company. We got the best prices on the internet. We also have individual representatives to help you. It's not just you're just going online and just interacting with a computer. Real people will help you buy the right metal, the right coins. Stay away from numismatics. Stay away from the overpriced coins, and just get as much metal as you can for your money and pay as little commission as possible.
Well, I remember you also created some kind of, you could spend your gold in a Visa, and it converts it kind of like...
Yeah, well, that's at my bank. I mean, I don't know if you have any listeners that are listening offshore, because we don't make that service available to Americans. But we do have the world's first gold-backed debit card, where, my gold customers, we store the gold, but you get a MasterCard, and, every time you use it, your gold account is debited instead of your cash account. So it lets you spend your gold if you want to spend it.
What, you don't love Americans? What's wrong, Pete? You don't love America? Why come Americans can't do it? You don't love America?
Well, I wish I could, but it's the U.S. government has made it too expensive. I can't afford it. I can't afford to take Americans.
Oh, no, the government doesn't love me anymore. This is, dang, if this doesn't show you everything you need to know. This is, I'm really glad that you've been out there and willing to take the heat. And this has, you've stayed out of jail. You follow all the laws, and you got 15 gazillion attorneys, but there is a lot of similarities, and you're just not going to, let them get by and, kiss the ring or whatever that you got from your father. I mean, come on, you got to give your dad some
I think my father followed the law. It's just that he didn't do what the government told him. He did what the law said. It was the government that broke the law. So in my case, I know what the law is, and I know the government doesn't give a damn about the law. And because the government makes its own laws as it goes along, we don't have legitimate law, I pay my taxes the way a store owner would pay protection money to the mafia, right? When the mafia shakes down a store owner and the store owner decides to give the mafia some money, it's not because he feels he's legally obligated to do it. He's just afraid if he doesn't comply with the mafia that they're going to beat him up, or they're going to kill him, or they're going to burn down his store.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I pay taxes. It's because I know the government will violate the law and come after me if I don't do it.
No, I'm with you, brother. That's exactly going. Hey, yeah, you're a freedom guy. I bet you fill out tax forms. Yeah, absolutely. And add $1. You know, just, you know, I get you another way. Peter Schiff getting them another way. You want to get them another way? It's Europack.com.